Many large cities are seeing a spike in their murder rates this year, that according to the FBI. Now, the Bureau's director, James COMEY, he has a theory as to why this is happening, saying, quote, "What I'm talking about is sort of the viral video effect. Changes in the way the police may be acting and in the way communities may be acting in terms of how much information that they share with police could well be at the heart of this." Do you think the FBI director has a point?
I don't know, and I don't think he was saying that he knows whether or not it has led to a spike in the murder rate, but obviously, as he did say, he's concerned about it, and it's worth looking into. What I do know is, you know, as John Kennedy once said, you know, before you tear the fence down, make sure you remember why it was put up. And while there are legitimate discussions about mass incarceration and issues to be addressed with regard to respect in the African American and other, you know, poor communities, Hispanic communities, with regard to law enforcement, all of which are legitimate questions. Legitimate issues in the city of New York with regard to stop and frisk. What I do know, and my own sort of little 2 cents to this, is that I spent the better part of my career as a federal prosecutor in the Southern District of New York locking up people, principally with regard to crimes of violence, largely as a result of African American people killing other African American people. And one of the things I learned through the late 80s and into the 90s is that a relatively small number of people turned out to be responsible in one way or another for most of the homicides. Now, I'm not claiming credit that that's why the murder rate went down in New York City, but it obviously had some impact. And so when you start talking about, you know, tinkering around with law enforcement and changing the, you know, the culture of how law enforcement, you know, operates in a community, and you take away some of the tools like stop and frisk or, you know, active community policing, which I think, you know, was intended to be a good thing, not an adversarial thing, and not a thing that was, you know, intended to abuse people's constitutional rights. And you also talk about, you know, the effects of mass incarceration and whether all these people should really be in jail forever, and we're going to, you know, be more lenient about sentences. Remember that one of the reasons we got to where we got, which was a relatively low crime environment in New York, was because law enforcement acted.
But I took it that he was talking about, and he used the term Ferguson Effect,
right,
which is the premise that if there's a camera around at all times, a clip or a portion of it either would change the way the bad cops were working over people, and now they're not doing that anymore, or moreover, people don't want to put themselves in a difficult situation where something may not look good on video, and as a consequence, they're going to steer clear of the situation.
You know something, I do think that it's a concern. There is no statistical proof of the Ferguson effect, and Mr. Comey was clear about that. I think the bigger issue is the lack of trust that has emerged over the last few years with how, you know, these police shootings of you know, young African Americans have come to the fore. You know, look, you have a video, it's going to show what happened. And if you're behaving correctly and you're acting correctly and your conduct cannot be assailed, you should want that video out there. I think the problem comes from somewhere else.
We saw cases as we're going through it, Mark, where a cop shoots him, does the throwaway gun, doesn't realize he's caught on camera. What happened in South Carolina, it was horrific. I showed that Texas pool party video where he dragged the girl by the hair. My point is, I'm not in any way justifying what the cop did. I think he overreacted and he deserved to be punished. However, the next time there's a call to respond to a pool party,
you're not going to grab a young lady.
Do you think they're less likely to go?
No, and if they are, and I have to say that, you know, you also have to wonder whether or not, you know, law enforcement, whether justifiably or not, just feels that they're being so put upon that they're not going to do their jobs the way they're supposed to. They're going to go there again,
and I think
they're going to go there
right
again, and they're not going to grab a young girl by the hair and drag her around.
Listen, this is why we have qualified and absolute immunity in civil cases. So public officials have freedom to make mistakes, good faith mistakes, and to do their jobs, and so they're not handcuffed. And there's a real danger when you have civilians policing the police department, because most of them, let's face it, have no police experience.
But the genie's out of the bottle, Mark, though.
Have
Mark,
never been there and in the moment, and have no clue
but
how
isn't
they'll
this a moot
react under
debate?
that kind of
Everybody's
pressure.
got
I think I'd agree with that, because, I mean, Comey can't argue. Nobody could argue, well, what's the solution to that? You're not going to have cameras anymore?
Right.
But that's ridiculous.
They can have cameras. Whether the statistics bear out that there's a chilling effect or not, we'll see. But empirically, certainly the crime rate and the violent crime rate in New York has gone up under the de Blasio administration. So we'll just leave it at that.
In certain areas, but overall, it's still at historic lows. So,
But it's more than it was under the last two administrations. There's no doubt about it. And
But
they're
I
going to
think-
be reluctant to do the quality of life policing.
But Comey's
that they were
concerned
doing
about,
before.
Baltimore, Chicago.
Yeah.
I mean, there are places
Yes.
that really do have
And they are
a murder
and then
problem.
obviously people not participating in the police. Gentlemen, great conversation tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. All right, stand-up comedy, the news, and ancient Japanese art, all three combined in a new TV show launching next month. Star of that, straight ahead.